is hosted. The only person using the, or actually there's two of us using standard sprites. Oh, hey, it's David and Superman and Taylor, but we're off.
All right, so we see a variety of openings here. A couple of people going for Sank first. We have one person going for Link's house first, then to Sank immediately, and one person going for the Uncle's Tunnel first. So those are basically the three main openings I've ever seen. I don't usually see Sank and then immediately quit to Link's house.
Yeah, and lots of different decisions going through someone's mind as they approach it. You know, they're waiting for, the race to start for quite a little bit, and you might be feeling those nerves and those jitters. Something to note as well, if you've been watching a lot of Randomizer lately, this is open mode. So we do have that choice between Link's house and the Sanctuary right from the bat. We will not have free light cone in the sewers.
Right, so that sewer chest down there in the dark cross room is considered a dark room chest for the purposes of the logic.
Well, we're not finding a whole lot from tree poles and bush crabs. We have some bombs already for Superman and Taylor, jumping out to a very early advantage there. And that could prove very valuable for him in Kakariko, depending on whether we need extra rupees or we find any on the way.
Yeah, I think he actually farmed up the tier 2 tree pole or something, or maybe 3 to get those.
Yeah, that does take some time. We don't have a weapon yet, so right now throwing bushes is just about all we got. We're seeing that actually on Superman and Taylor's screen, getting a big 20 actually from that drop. Very nice. In the forest, though, we're finding 300.
Yep, bunch of money there, 300 rupees. You really want to find lots of money early on, because you got to buy the bottle vendor's item. More often than not, you got to buy bombs. Pink Kitty Rose actually saving and quitting out of the Lost Woods hideout. Interesting.
Yeah, that could indicate a South Shore check coming up, or potentially even going by Lake Hylia.
Wait a minute. What? Okay, this is certainly not something I expected. Oh, going for the bomb shop here, and then heading... well, I don't know where.
Oh, that was the hammer!
Okay, the hammer is on Lake Hylia Island, meaning we will need Dark World access without the hammer and the mirror and flippers before we can get a hold of that.
Yeah, it's one of the more annoying places to find the hammer. Magic Bat, probably my least favorite personally, but I mean, you got to go a long way to get to that spot without having access to the portal just south of Link's house. So Pink Kitty Rose off to a great information advantage here.
Absolutely. I mean, we had Hammer in Ice Palace last night, which was great, and that's kind of a similar location.
We will get our first sword here, though, in the Thieves' Hut and the lamp, so, the sewers and the rest of the original escape sequence available to us now.
Oh, speaking of... Yeah.
Which
Sorry, I just saw that, and then I realized that is literally what you just said. Anyways, so there's the mirror as well. That's our wonderful item there. The note that, oh, hey, it's David did not get that because he did not have bombs at the time.
Also worthy of note, the bottle vendor giving us the cheapest Sword of Evil's Bane I've ever seen for just 100 rupees, and that will be potentially something that could point us to Aghanim with that lamp.
Yeah, lamp, 2 swords, that is an Aga play. And with the mirror in hand, I would be tempted to be like, I'm gonna go get the flippers and get that hammer. Speaking of which, there's the Moon Pearl, which will also be required to get that hammer.
Yeah, so a lot of the components coming together pretty quickly here. Very easy to see that hammer and think, oh goodness, this is going to be a ridiculous thing to get. The thing about it, though, is that Pink Kitty Rose, as far as the restreamed racers go, is the only one who knows about that hammer so far.
Yep. We note that Pink Kitty Rose picks up the Ether Medallion in the mini Moldorm cave there. So that could be useful later on. Of course, all of our runners will end up checking Mini Moldorm eventually.
Yeah, and by the looks of things, I believe Superman and Taylor is the only person who didn't have to buy bombs, seemingly having found the drops needed and throughout the chest. So that's a little bit of time saved here in Kakariko, but it's hard to ignore how far ahead in these checks Pink Kitty Rose is right now. I mean, that's already all the way to Ice Cave. We will get our first look at the library, though. Superintendent Taylor did not give us a very good look at the library.
That is true. I do recall looking at Pink Kitty Rose's stream as she was heading over to Sahasrala's hut. She did talk to Sahasrala and determined that Skull Woods was in fact the green pendant, which means if our map check is correct, all of our pendants are known.
Definitely appears to be the case, which is, solid information for any runner to have. I don't believe everybody's done a map check. I've only seen 2 of them myself, but there are 4 races to keep track of. There's a third one there. So we do have a 5-6 crystal.
Oh, that is
Eastern
not correct.
Yes.
Desert. So Eastern is in fact a crystal. That is false. So Eastern and Desert are 5-6 crystals. Tower of Hera is, of course, a pendant, but now we don't know what the remaining pendant is. So we could be in a situation where Turtle Rock is the remaining pendant, and that could give us a seed where the Fire Rod is not required.
I'm just picturing in the back of my mind all of the exotic scenarios that require you to go a very long way to take that big bomb through an Aghanim warp to the pyramid after doing pretty much all the light world. We've seen a couple of really weird logic scenarios happen around the hammer in that particular location, and then, of course, anything at the Pyramid Ferry with accessible crystals. We obviously need the Book of Medora or Flute and Mirror in order to get into Desert, so it's a moot point for now, but it would be interesting.
We could be in that weird situation where, like, the flippers are in there, which would lead to the hammer. So...
Well, we are going to get an Nagina's cave check here in the desert. Pink Kitty Rose obviously can't go into desert. Just a 5 bomb bag capacity upgrade, so some time spent. And this is kind of where, we see the balance between different runners doing different routes throughout this. Some people will completely forego that check, hoping to, save a little bit of time there and get out in front with a progression advantage. You're racing against 9 or 10 other people. You're kind of forced to sometimes. Well, this is going to round out the South Shore checks. Pink Kitty Rose is doubling back to Kakariko the same way that the other racers have checked. Asmati Games and Oh Hey It's David both checking the dam at the same time. We're going to skip that big 20 since we got that 300. However, maybe Zora ends up being important. I don't know if I'd be skipping any rupees until I have 500. And if you enjoy feeling like you lost something for spending a lot of time, you would love that Ice Rod Cave that we saw just a moment ago again, was the single arrow, which there's only one of in the game. So it's either an honor or a disgrace to find it, depending on your perspective.
Yeah, some people, get real hyped for that particular arrow, but I'm reasonably certain that if you are running the game, that person is not you.
Yep, you might even experience a interesting case of, happy slashes. You may just encounter, like, a good small handful of them, depending on how you feel emotionally in the moment. We're going to see a couple of different checks being made, people kind of rounding out their early Sphere 1 checks, things that are available to us right from the get-go. So how are we going to get to the Dark World today? I mean, we know that hammer's blocked. I mean, it really does look like an Aghanim play. Would not be surprised to see someone heading towards Hyrule Castle Tower shortly.
Yeah, I think Superintendent Taylor will probably be clearing out as much of escape as he can, and then he may just head that direction. I mean, the only options, really, for Dark World access today are 2 gloves or Aga. And we don't have any gloves.
And it just occurred to me that that was the first sword at Bottle Vendor for BKR. I was kind of surprised everybody else has Master now, but, how long it takes to get that sword may influence when you go to Aghanim. I mean, having the mirror for the rest of that escape sequence is really handy. You can go right down to Zelda's cell and just go right back to the entrance. So we see Superintendent Taylor heading down there now, like you were mentioning. Seems like that's probably on his mind. Oh, we're going to get a fake flipper check here from Asmati Games, though, the first that we've seen. Quite a few items, and this will actually be the second person on stream here to notice this hammer, which I don't know how I'd react in that scenario. At least you're swimming. You have to stay afloat, right?
Yeah, I think he kind of double take there for a second. What? Now, interestingly enough, not going for the hobo, deciding that is not worth his time.
Well, we'll find out if this is worth it. We have the moon pearls, so we can do both the water walk and, of course, enter this waterfall cave. So if we had the rupees, we could also check Zora, and we do actually. So, power glove.
Oh, love.
Oh my goodness.
So it's a glove and a bottle, by the way. So that's a interesting thing as well.
Yeah, that'll make our first crack at the sick kid available to us. Asmati Games finding also half magic. Can't get that right now unless we have vanilla flippers, which would be, I don't know, a little bonkers right now.
Why are you taking cracks at the sick kid? He's already sick.
Maybe he's just sick of the puns. I feel like it's obligatory. We're not finding anything here in the escape sequence, though. Super Taylor's back to the entrance of the castle, and Aghanim it looks to be.
Well, at the moment, he's going for the dark escape room. If we find the small key, he could proceed all the way to the back, but it may not be there.
Yeah, at least we have the lamp for this. You can do it in the dark, but it's kind of frustrating. Now, if you haven't been in a tournament or in kind of race scenario, it's absolutely legal to have a dark room map open. A lot of these runners, though, will not really require it. You know, everybody's going for gold here in this tournament. I'm pretty sure anybody who's going to do a dark room doesn't use the map.
Well, you say that.
I get the feeling you use a map, don't you?
Well, I used one yesterday. Because in order to get a decent time on the seed, you had to do Dark Agate Tower.
Oh, that's right. I did see a discussion of that. Which, by the way, that was a pretty rewarding decision to have that map open, wasn't it?
Well, I pulled it up in the middle of the race, so... but yeah, it's a very nice... It was a very nice save, and I don't expect that Dark Room to ever be a save for the remainder of the tournament. It was so bizarre. That being said, we are seeing the back of Escape here. Whole lot of garbage, though, so it does in fact look like that Aga play is live.
Yep, so I jumped the gun a little bit ago, but we will see it from Super Taylor first. And we are in Eastern Palace for Oh Hey It's David, hoping either for a bow or at least some kind of progression. There are still a couple of opportunities. If we find that bow, we could find something in Armos. I didn't count the items very well in this dungeon, so apologies if I'm a little behind on that. But we have the big key chest coming up, and then, of course, the big chest itself, if we haven't picked up that key.
I believe he did pick up the big chest, and it may or may not have contained the red mail.
Yeah, judging by the link sprite. Good point. So red mail is interesting this early on. That could potentially lead to some faster strategy.
Wasn't the blue mail at the race game?
Yes, it was.
Okay, it's just everyone else skipped it. That makes sense.
Well, speaking of debut strategies, we also have a skip in that room done, with some degree of success. So, hey, it's David finding just a piece of heart, though. Nope, and out of there. So Eastern appears to be mostly a bust.
Asmati is headed for Death Mountain with that glove in hand. So Asmati using the fake flippers to potentially sequence break around Aga. There is a possibility that he will find another glove.
Yeah, that would be the clutchest thing possible. That's a good 5 minutes of, well, depending on how you do Aga Tower. I mean, everybody plays it a little bit differently. But, depending on your skill there, a good 5 minutes you shave away from the entire time. So that could lead later to some more extensive checks, having more freedom to do so.
Yeah, and the other thing about this is, if he does find a way around Aga at this point, it's going to be in Pendant Tower of Hera. So that's going to make it even longer for these other runners to get their gloves.
Well, so we've already won a gamble with trying to do the waterfall cave. Doubling down could be a really huge advantage. Even if you could even have, say, an extra death in some parts of the game with that kind of advantage. So we obviously don't have every single racer in the entire race up on the restream, but as of now, what we see in front of us as Asmati Games is at a clear progression advantage with that glove.
So did Asmati elect to go check the sick kid yet? I did not see that.
I don't believe so. It's also nice that we get the Uncle portal for save warping. That also gives Asmati a much faster ascent up the mountain, presuming, say, we don't find the flute very quickly. Be a nice way to get up there quicker than everybody else. Well, here comes that Aghanim fight. First to the room is Super Taylor here. Aghanim, if you haven't played this game, has a 5 attack cycle. The first one's always reflectable. 2, 3, and 4 have a 50-50 chance of being the same thing, or a blue ball shot that you see there on Super Taylor's screen. And then the 5th one is always lightning. In Randomizer, it will always be a set of RNG for each racer, unless you die to the boss or maybe mirror out or something, which I'm a little scared of. Super Taylor still has that mirror open.
Yeah, I mean, as long as he doesn't hit the Y button, he's okay, but I may or may not have mirrored out of Aga 1 before, and it's like the worst feeling.
Seeing quite a few blue balls here for Super Taylor and not having a good day in that regard, but on the bright side, at least you know your opponents have the same luck. The only thing you can really do to speed up this fight is to try to knock Aghanim towards the center of the arena, hoping that the warp is shorter from that point, but beyond that, really nothing else you can do.
And Asmati just gets a map from Trolldorm, meaning it looks like there might be something in the basement.
And we have that lamp, so as you mentioned before, you know, when it rains, it pours. If it's something important down there, Asmati gains even more because everybody else is probably reluctant to go to the basement of a pendant dungeon.
So the only real downside I see here is that he didn't check the hobo while he had the chance as well, so that could have been the other glove. But who knows?
What a world would it be if that were the case? We do get confirmation that Skullwoods is our green pendant, and then red pendant today is going to be Swamp Palace, which could be quite a conundrum for people making a decision once they have access to that.
Yeah, because you're guaranteed to have those flippers and that mirror before you get the hammer, which are all required for Swamp. But there's one more item you want before you go into Swamp, and that's the hook shot. You don't really want to dip Pendant Swamp without being able to get every ounce of value you can out of it.
Yeah, given that there's at least 3 items, or at least 3 chests, and then of course the boss item back in the back half of the dungeon locked by the hook shot, it's a big loss to try to even bother with the dungeon without having that. Oh, some interesting routing here from Super Taylor. We're going to check Sahasrar's HUD and you know, take a look at everything in here while we're on our way to Palace of Darkness, taking great advantage of using a mirror portal right outside the dungeon to combo the two. Probably going to check Eastern somewhere in this chain as well.
Not going to lie, this is kind of one of my favorite plays.
Yeah, particularly if you can get to this point that Super Taylor's in without having really lost much, you know, progression that you needed, like knowing that you have to go to Aghanim at this point. And it's actually interesting to see the Aghanim play before having checked Sahasrara in Eastern Palace. Would be a really nice time edge over, say, like Asmati and oh hey, it's David, you know, for having to do so in a longer route.
Now, unfortunately, even though Asmati Games did the massive sequence break, does not look like it's paying off in the end, and they're going to be, you know, significantly behind heading into the Dark World, although it could be a while before our runners head to get that glove out of the Waterfall Ferry.
Yeah, so something to consider are those flippers, and great point. You know, we might not see that for a while. We may find our other power glove before that.
Yeah, that actually seems fairly likely. Having all 3 major Dark World access items locked behind the flippers is pretty rare, but given the current setup, quite possible.
Well, I don't know if it's just plain frustrating to have that happen, but if I knew that there's potentially some money on the line, I would be even more frustrated. Like, you know, how people maintain their composure in these races amazes me, and you know, shout outs to a lot of the people participating in the tournament, both helping in the background and racing, of course. Very tight-knit community we have going here, so it's fun to see so many familiar names and faces, of course, and voices.
So I stand corrected. The mail upgrade was in the very first chest of Eastern Palace.
Yeah, so we'll at least get to see that banana hat if folks out there are a fan of the original Link to the Past Link sprite, or Zelda, depending on your preferences. But that's, objectively the best armor, right?
You could say that. I mean, if you're talking about a sartorial perspective, then yes. If you're talking about a protection perspective, probably not.
Fair enough, fair enough. And of course, if you haven't seen a lot of these sprites that, are being used, we do have a Zelda in the bottom left corner. I believe that's a different Zelda. Or no, which sprite is that? Do you know?
I believe it's Twilight Princess Zelda.
Ah, yes. And of course, all of these custom sprites also have their own blue and red mail versions. Very fun to see the different additions of that. And if you see any bunny beams in this race, you may get to see a bunny form or two. Moon Pearl kind of robbed us of that opportunity, but that'll be fun. Well, so this is, I believe, is our first entrance into Palace of Darkness. Pink Kitty Rose diving in first.
Yeah, we could not have the flippers on the pedestal, unfortunately, because Swamp Palace requires the hammer, and the hammer requires the flippers.
Well, so we see Asmati Games checking out the eastern area, likely jumping right into that dungeon. The disadvantage of not having that portal, though, I mean, that's a huge edge to be able to do both in a combo. And we also have Oh Hey It's David finishing up Aghanim, so it goes to show just, how much you can benefit from doing an early Aghanim play, particularly if you know that you can combo, say you have that mirror. Seems very heads up for Superman Taylor to make that decision.
That is a slightly better point. Also, flippers are required for actual Swamp itself.
Oh, absolutely. Someday we'll find that indoor fake flipper, but I don't anticipate it anytime soon.
Oh, it exists. It's just a major glitch.
Which is its own can of worms. That's a discussion for another day. Oh, I thought for a second there we were going to see a hammer jump out of Pink Kitty Rose, but we're just bombing open that doorway for now. It's a smart thing to do while you're on the way through.
Yeah, we may see it if it turns out that we don't have enough keys to finish.
Something else to consider here, nobody has a bottle besides Asmati Games, and in Palace of Darkness, you could circumvent the bow logic, seeing as nobody's found that bow yet.
So speaking of Palace of Darkness, it looks like we have found everyone's favorite literacy object.
I don't speak Hylian.
Well, why not?
You could learn just by reading that book, Medora. So that does do a couple of really nice things for us. Tablets are now in the picture. Kind of a sour note for Asmati Games, because you have lost the Death Mountain trip to be able to go up there. And with the Master Sword, you can check it. And then, of course, when we make our way to the southwest corner of Dark World, we will be able to check that Bombos tablet mirroring into the Light World. Oh, and I guess there's that big thing chat's really excited about, 3 pendants.
Yeah, there is that. What I'm actually more excited about is that it opens up Desert flippers. Sorry, my brain got completely interrupted by that particular visual right there.
Hey, I mean, it's a big find, and, we already know what's behind the flippers, at least one of the things that's behind the flippers, too, even. And we have not seen that Sick Kid chat yet from Asmati Games. I would be floored, absolutely positively floored, if if the Titan's Mitts was that Sick Kid.
Oh, that would be just like the most devastating thing I could think of for Asmati Games, if he was unable to get that early on. Oh.
But so we still have a little bit more of Palace of Darkness to do here. We don't have the hammer, so we can't go down to bop the Helmasaur King about, 17 to a whole bunch of times. We're not gonna be able to finish this up, but we will at least be able to get that value.
You don't need the hookshot to reach the hammer. All you need to do is go south from Pod and jump in the water.
Yeah, that's true. So, Yeah, that's a little more available to us than I had previously realized. Because yeah, we did Aghanim. That makes sense. So that is another thing to consider. Another way to avoid kind of having a rough logic situation, getting to that hammer. And I got to think that only 2 of our 4 runners on stream here actually know about that hammer. We know for a fact that Pink Kitty Rose and Asmati Games, or was it Pink Kitty Rose or was it Super Nintendo?
Oh, it's Pink Kitty Rose, yeah.
Yeah, because they early check into Hylia. Those 2 know that they have to get to that direction, but it's an easy place to ignore. Now that we have those flippers, though, it's pretty likely that our runners will go check the Lake Hylia area pretty soon. Seeing a little bit of annoyance on Asmati's screen from those gold guards trying to get some spins off. We don't got to worry about preserving any prize packs in this castle tower, though. But in the meantime, we're finishing up some checks in both Eastern Palace and Palace of Darkness for Pink Kitty Rose and Oh Hey It's David, respectively. Here comes that hobo, though. We've been waiting for that.
Yep. So now, for those of you who are interested in that pod situation, the flippers in this particular case were not locked behind the bow because there were 3 keys available in the front, plus 2 in the back for the 5 that you need for that particular area. The magic powder on the hobo today.
Yeah, he's got a stash of some kind under the bridge. I'm not sure how legal that is, but that does potentially give us an opportunity to check the Witch's Hut northeast portion of Hyrule, and if you hadn't gone to Zora yet, you could combo a bunch of things together. Say if you want to take care of that catfish, it might not be a bad idea to do all 3 things at once.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to make any comments on the realism of the hobo having powder, but we'll just let that one slide.
Nevertheless, though, even if it doesn't end up leading to progression, it would be an amazing item to have in any race. It's the best safety you can pretty much hope for, and people even in the NMG community who race this game will still pick it up until they get to a really fast point that I'm definitely not at. But so it'll be very reliable whenever we see bunny beams or any anti-fairies. We can get pretty much a 7-heart heal anywhere.
All right, Pink Kitty Rose also picking up that powder and will probably be immediately jumping back into that portal. See, that's one of the things about the Dark World here. There's a nice little spot right there where you can mirror and pick up the hobo.
Which on some level makes me wonder why you can swim all the way south from there. But, I mean, it's very convenient for Randomizer. It's the only reason Pink Kitty Rose will be just steps behind Super Taylor here, who just picked up the hammer first on our screen to do so. Wow, did you see that bomb toss from Asmati Games?
I did not, but...
The late explosion knocked the blue guard off. Oh my god, I wish I had the instant replay for that.
Very nice. Super Taylor heading exactly the right direction. Gonna pick up that glove and bottle. And of course, because of the equipment we have on hand, that's gonna give Super Taylor access to that half magic as well.
Yeah, doing that all in one go, and that's a great, again, safety thing to have. A lot of bosses become a little more comfortable, regardless of your equipment. For example, doing Cold Stare later. But as we're talking about stuff like, say, Catfish and Zora, PKR right now going to Hype Cave, because that is the most item-dense location right now.
So here's the question. $4,000 on the line. Do you spend 10 seconds to go pick up the half magic is the question.
Ooh, how good of a shot do you think you are with that fire rod? I don't know if I gambled that.
Yeah, Super Taylor also going to pick it up. No fault here.
Jeez, that's an existential question. You make yourself seriously wonder, like, what would you do in that situation? But that's a question for all of our racers here today to answer for themselves. Of course, we saw Zora. We're not Zora. We saw the Zora area earlier on with that half magic. So. Couple of things getting care of all at the same time. Very glad to see that everybody on screen is making their way to Waterfall Cave. It would be a bad day otherwise.
Well, Pink Kitty Rose has not gone to Waterfall Cave. That is the one issue. Now, here's the problem. They're also going into Swamp Palace. without the hook shot.
That's problematic. And of course, maybe we find the hook shot there. I mean, it is still an item dense location, just not as item dense as it should be without it.
Yeah, and I guess, Pink Kitty Rose is just going for the, the oddball play. That's one of the things you do when you're in a race with a lot of people, and it's very important that you place high, is you make an oddball play and hope no one else does, and hope it works.
The rationality seems to be holding true here. I'll tell you though, as we find out, the black market for organs, hearts in particular, only a quarter of a heart's pretty expensive here in Hyrule. 500 rupees is what King Zora charges, and he seems to be trafficking that pretty liberally.
Now the question is, are you getting an atrium or a ventricle for that?
I just can't contemplate the clavicle on that one. I just can't, get past the clavicle in order to figure that one out. Well, so Swamp here, a couple items that we actually can get. I'm really curious. I mean, it would be such a crazy thing to see that hook shot and to see that turn into... because you'd have to check the rest of the world for most of these runners before you'd even consider coming in here.
All right. So Pink Kitty Rose heading into the compass room here in Swamp. Superintendent Taylor is getting that Agena cave check out of the way before heading into Desert.
And it's everybody's favorite Quake fish. Let's find out what it's going to be today. I mean, probably not Quake itself, but just a big 20.
I don't know. Despite the chat's vehement objections, I have to think that going into Swamp for 4 chests like this may not be the best play, but it could be. It is a possibility, and so it's not outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of gambling, I'm going to double down on that statement as well. Absolutely a bold decision to make, regardless of anybody's interpretation. Not being able to complete the dungeon is a big challenge, and it's a pendant. So it's, again, probably just looking at this how would everybody else do this? And, it could either pay off big or it could just completely fall flat in the face. I'm very interested, though, and impressed to see anybody have the stones to do that.
Yeah, now that being said, if I were going to make the Swamp play, this is probably the kind of time I would do it when I can't finish it, because, I mean, I don't want to have to come back here.
Though, something a little more conventional we're seeing out of Superintendent Taylor. We're heading into Desert. I believe this is our first look, and I didn't see anything about, a torch item. So I don't believe this is boots locked.
Well, I think it probably is at this point, because he got the small key out of the middle chest, I think, and then those 2 items on the right indicates that the big key must be on the torch.
Yep, so we will be boots locked for that, and that is one of our 5-6 crystals as well, so something to kind of keep tucked in the back of our heads for later on in the race. Well, we're going to find out here pretty quick, and it's a slow walk back around for Pink Kitty Rose, so we're going to find out not very quick, but the 50% chance of this being a hook shot or a bad decision.
That is the worst decision. So it looks like Swamp, at least the very first part of Swamp, is in fact straight up Garbo.
However, you always got to take what you can with what you do or what you decide, so we are going to make our way over to the Bombos tablet, and that will be our first look at the Bombos tablet, while Asmati Games is doing Pod, and of course Hera for Oh Hey It's David. Falling from the sky today, it will be just another big 20. Looks like more Dark World Overworld. Stumpy, just a piece of heart, or a heart container. Definitely not our Sank card, unfortunately, but does K45 have something we need today?
Well, we'll certainly find out. Yes.
That must be Samaria.
Indeed.
So that's very welcome news for any runner, and you know, Super Nintendo probably at this point realizing, say, that the hammer was an annoying place to look, and that you know, Aghanim was a pretty quick decision to make, might be feeling a bit ahead here. We obviously can tell that he is, for you know, having done those things, he saved some time overall on time commitments, but remains to be seen if this is going to translate to getting all these crystal dungeons out of the way faster. Sometimes having one or more progression items can be a hindrance, sending you to the wrong places. Oh, that smells like vanilla.
Yep. At least it wasn't 30 digs for a piece of heart.
I mean, that's like almost vanilla 100% run.
What are you talking about? 100% is more like 114 digs over 7 tries.
Well, that's what I'm saying. One of those tries has to be like 30, and then you eventually get it. Yeah, absolutely. If you folks have never done the speedrun in this game, 100% is a mentally taxing category to run. You can be like perfect at the game and still lose runs so late into them. Well, Magic Bat's on the table, and we are seeing PKR take care of the both the bottle and the glove. I'm interested to see what this bat has for us today.
Batman has a big 20 today. I was told Bruce Wayne had more money than that, but apparently not.
I mean, do you see the size of this cave? I mean, it's clearly he's falling on hard times, and his mansion up top of it. I mean, there is apparently.
I mean, he's rented it out to a Smith Brothers. Anyway,
isn't it canon in that series that he's a weapons producer? But the sick kid finally.
More big 20s.
I believe there are approximately 20 of them in the pool, so we're still going to find more. But, you know, buckle in. You're not seeing the end of that.
I believe the actual number is 28, which is a significant number.
Even better.
And PKR picking up that half magic as well. I imagine Osmati Games probably won't even pick up the half magic, because he has all those other items.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. Sometimes what you have in your inventory will influence whether or not you're even going to consider certain safeties. You know, someone, say, knew that powder was on the Torch of GT late in a race, they might completely skip that as opposed to finding it out in the overworld, visible. You might just pick it up because, hey, you might end up needing it later.
All right, so speaking of large troves of treasure, oh hey, it's David is over in Paradox Cave with the fire rod and the hook shot.
Oh my. Potentially a Saint card, and of course our favorite big 20. I mean, wow, what an amazing cave. You know, it's almost kind of surprising how long it's taken for any of our racers to make their way to the east side. Obviously, we were waiting on that hammer, but nobody else has had a reason to go up the mountain. So that's an awesome thing for Oh Hey It's David. Now, if you end up diving into Swamp for all those items, it's both faster in terms of movement and, of course, completable.
And another great thing about Oh Hey It's David's play is he can go beat Skull Woods if he wants to. I don't know if he does, but it is a green pendant, so it might be useful.
And then it would be only natural to check the pedestal while you're there, so if that ever crosses our minds, and of course 2 items in Skull Woods, you're going to know pretty quickly in the dungeon if you're committing to finishing the dungeon or, you know, just kind of dipping and diving. out of there. But Thieves Town also on the menu for Super Nintendo today, on his Super Nintendo, I presume. I do see Pink Kitty Rose heading up to the top of the mountain. That's also an opportunity for that tablet.
As a big 20 on the tablet.
I'm sensing some trends here.
Yep, if you are investing in big 20, this is your day. What? There's the flute inside Thieves Town. Oh, we got a ped check while I wasn't looking.
It was Titan's mitts.
What?
It was Titan's mitts.
Are you kidding me right now?
Not kidding. No jokes. I can't translate Hylian, but it was pretty clear on that screen that something to lift heavy things. A way to lift
heavier things? Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen. So this is one of those 0.5% chance seeds of AGA and pedestal required.
I mean, we have the hook shot, but oh boy, do we also have a long shot in a lot of ways. That is not common in the logic at all.
I thought that was a different game. Anyway.
I'm just in absolute abject shock right now.
Okay, so strap yourselves in, folks. This is going to be a ride.
So, that was Oh Hey It's David checking that. Now the only person in the restream right now that we can see has any knowledge of this. Pink Kitty Rose, when she finds out later, might regret that swamp decision even more heavily.
Yeah, Pink Kitty Rose is going to do the swamp double dip. The pendant swamp double dip, which is gross.
On the bright side, pendant was required, so, you know, not a terrible burn, just not fun.
So, yeah, you have to think that maybe Pink Kitty Rose's instincts as far as the seed were sort of on, thinking swamp was going to be required, just not which part of swamp was going to be required.
Yeah, 100% on her head. And I jumbled the words, but basically flipping it on its head. With the logic as far as PKR is concerned. And then, of course, you know, Skull Woods is a pretty quick finish, but I mean, how much would you check? I mean, do you feel like you have to kind of take some of these pendant dungeons a little more aggressively? It changes really the dynamic of what go mode is, and a lot of people are probably taking a quick look at their tracker when they find out that that's required.
All right, so with that knowledge of the pedestal required, Oh Hey It's David is going into the back of Skull Woods knowing that this is going to be required at some point. Now, there is an argument, as is being made in chat, that you come back here once you're done with the other pendants. Especially since all of them are available at the moment. But,
I think you said that Flute was in Thieves Town, right?
Yeah, Flute was in Thieves Town.
Well, if we presume that Oh Hey It's David's going to head south from here, it could still work out reasonably conveniently. I mean, fluting close to Lost Woods is better than walking, of course. But I mean, at least that's something. Speaking of walking, we haven't found those yet, have we, those boots?
No, sir. No, sir, we have not.
And we know we need it for desert. And when was the last time you saw boots go mode?
Last time I can remember, it had something to do with a big key in Ganon's tower.
Oh, no. Well,
it's not going to be the case today.
Well, we saw some really great boss fights from Oh Hey It's David with Mothula and Superman Taylor with Blind. Blind looking nearly perfect. Oh Hey It's David doing a pretty good job to not take much damage in his fight. So those little execution edges will be very important now that we know that this is basically a race to finish the entire gosh darn game.
Yeah, so there's a category in this randomizer called All Dungeons, where you have to complete every dungeon regardless of whether it's a pendant or a crystal, and that includes AGA 1. This just happens to be one of those seeds without it actually being that category.
I mean, hey, if you throw 1 million randomizer seed generators at a wall, eventually you get the vanilla game, right?
No, you don't. I mean, philosophically, if it was completely randomized, then sure, but the logic will never put a small key in the dark maze of pod.
Oh, okay, I see how it is. You'll get nearly vanilla games, potentially. Of course, we're referencing the 1,000 Chimpanzees as a Typewriter and, of course, Shakespeare, but different strokes for different folks. We're looking at some more overworld, though, now that we have some more knowledge. Looks like Graveyard Check is happening twice at the same time. Having to take a little bit of a long walk to get there, though.
Pink Kitty Rose now finding out the fate of this seed with the good old-fashioned Titan's mitts required there. And
yeah,
while she's there, she's going to pick up Moth as well.
Pretty convenient to have that portal still there. And also, Thieves Town's obviously very important to us. We know that we can't, skip Misery Mire or anything, whether it was Crystal or Pendant, but we will definitely need it to try to get an edge on other racers. The more that you find, of course, in a larger race like this, for those of you who have only seen really one-on-one matches, is that when you start finding some of these progressions, you realize that your opponents start having these advantages as well, and you're going to get a good gauge of where you are sometimes in a race based on how available something important like Flute was. And Thieves Town's pretty early on. That's very accessible in the Dark World compared to a lot of places. Down with Mothula yet again, and Asmati Games going to be taking on Blind not too long from now. While we have a little bit of covering old steps and retracing around, want to encourage everybody who's watching today. This is a fantastic race to see, and of course to follow these runners. Super Taylor, Pink Kitty Rose, Oh Hey It's David, and Asmati Games respectively. They're putting on a great show for us.
Absolutely. So, Oh Hey It's David is doing a pretty thorough check of West and South Dark World before heading to Swamp Palace to finish it off for that glove. Now, if Oh Hey It's David makes the play to skip the left side of Swamp Palace, it turns out it will be a pretty good play. But there's no real way you could know that. Oh ho, we got our Tempered Sword for David. Taylor already had that, but once again, 3 swords available. That's always something you want to see as a runner.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's extra nice to get it relatively early in dungeon progression. Despite some of the blazingly fast races we've seen lately. Oh, that's an Ice Rod in the chess game as well. You may have
sure
mentioned
is.
Before.
I didn't, but the Ice Rod is there in the chess game. I'm imagining that means Super Taylor probably has it. But I didn't see it the first time because I was pedestal hyping.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy moment. But we'll also get our first Flute activation. So Super Taylor now has this available. Is it a check in Mire? No, it's right up to the mountain. Which we know is a great thing because he needs that hookshot and fire rod ASAP Rocky. A fun thing of note you'll see on Asmati Games' screen here with the Maiden. Some of the NPCs are also changed for the color palette when you have a different sprite. So you'll notice that some people in the game look a little bit strange. That's why. That's not like some kind of weird thing with the feed.
Yeah, very true.
Well, we saw Hera very early in the race, and now we're finally seeing a return to Hera through different racers. Quite a lot of divergence for the crazy loops that we've gone through. For, Aghanim required, pedestal, and so few dungeons completed. It's going to be very interesting to see how close these runners will be at the very end of things. after everything kind of coalesces together. I think there's going to be some pretty big gaps here, though. Yet another blind down, so that's 2 of 4. We're going to see, oh, hey, it's David come through the same section. Every runner here probably really sorely missing their boots. The Hellway, not a fun place to be without them.
Yeah, boots are pretty nice in that Hellway, especially if you can line up on just the right pixel. Unfortunately, not the case today. And we do see for sure that Super Nintendo does have that ice rod, as well as Osmati Games.
Well, there's that vanilla big 20 from the sick kid taking his lunch yet again. Pink Kitty Rose is not heading back to the basement.
Yep, noping right out of that basement. Perfectly valid strategy, especially knowing what you came in there for. You came in for the pendant.
Yep, and we absolutely know that Titan's Mitts is, what we're really worrying about there. And of course, it just occurred to me, I don't know why I didn't mention it before, but you can't get to Meyer without those mitts. So nothing in that area could potentially have any progression for us either. It's probably going to be one of the last dungeons that we encounter in all likelihood. Well, it will be the last dungeon we encounter, unless Turtle Rock can happen afterwards.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we could find over there in Misery Mire is the bow.
Oh goodness, yeah, that is. So with Pedestal, that throws me off because you very rarely see it as far as these races go. But yeah, absolutely, we just need to get those pendants before we can then do Mire. Took me a second to collect my thoughts on that. What a crazy wild ride this seed has been, and it's only going to open up further after we have those mitts.
We still got to get that bow. I cannot believe we got to get the bow. We got to get the boots. Those are 2 items that we are away from go mode. We know where the mitts are.
Well, actually, I don't think everybody does yet. I'm pretty sure Asmati Games has not checked, having not been to Skull Woods yet. And of course, why would you go to Skull Woods if you haven't been up to the, Fire Rod and Death Mountain?
Exactly. So Pink Kitty Rose will likely be the first of our runners to acquire the Titan's mitts.
And despite having double dipped this dungeon, we'll actually be the first one to finish Swamp as well. Regrettably, we're not going to be able to see any zero cycle strats unless we find these boots somewhere deep in the dungeon. Oh, we don't have Tempered for Pink Kitty Rose anyway, but our other runners potentially could. Or maybe we find that last sword too. When it rains, it could pour, right?
Yeah, it's possible. All right, so Pink Kitty Rose is going to go ahead and check some chests here in the back, still missing items. So that's definitely the play to make.
There's a possibility that we could have bowsmiths today.
Ooh. Have the bow locked in a purple chest. Have the bow in Spike Cave.
Titan's mitts can be a cruel mistress.
Yeah. So the third sword is in the brewery of Village of Outcasts, and Pink Kitty Rose just has not touched Village of Outcasts yet, which is also why she does not have the flute.
Yeah, that's a pretty rough place to be, as far as your mentality goes in a race, when you go almost an hour into the race and you're still looking for that thing. But we'll see a pretty standard, straightforward Argus fight for Master Sword from Pink Kitty Rose. Not going to bother switching to that hammer. It's perfectly fine to do double pulls and then sword spins, trying to get as many out of each spin as possible.
You know, it just never occurred to me to try to do the double pull and then spin.
You know, it can be kind of a tight window, and Argus doesn't like to play very nicely with, you know, the way you position yourself on screen. Probably one of the more annoying bosses to fight if you have under equipment. But Pink Kitty Rose making good, fast work of both the first and second phases. I definitely wouldn't have done that faster, but here comes that big 20, giving us very little reward beyond just knowledge that we can get a little bit closer to that pedestal. Also, it could be convenient to do Thieves Town and Skullwoods, you know, all in one go. We do have that fire rod, and then yeah, we could go right to the pedestal. So, I mean, this could still work out pretty well for Pink Kitty Rose. Of course, we have Oh Hey It's David deciding to dig quite a few holes to find that piece of heart. Not going to be too happy, just going to walk away from that. We have a tablet check, of course, from Asmati Games, and we've already seen that. Superintendent Taylor heading into the back half of Skullwoods. Still missing some of those pendants, though, so can't make a really nice combo out of this.
Gonna go ahead and see good old Stumpsman here. I imagine we'll be getting that Cane of Samaria out of the Grove Ledge Cave 45 here as well.
Oh no, Asmati Games having to divert to Spiral Cave because dead rocks are just not good to us today. So we can't get that portal right away. Obviously, we couldn't get that portal because of no Titan's Mitts, but never fun when you get dead rocked in any position. Our first pedestal pull at 57 minutes right on the dot. Pink Kitty Rose will be the first one to get that Titan's Mitts.
And looks like David's going to go to Hype Cave first, which we still haven't seen from him. And then I imagine the swamp clear will be forthcoming. Our second pedestal pull, or no, this is a check. Haha.
Oh, there was some delay. Superintendent Taylor clearly showing some displeasure just from simply pausing. I mean, Superintendent Taylor does run pretty fast in A Link to the Past, generally speaking, so and probably contemplating that location and all of the decisions of the last hour simultaneously.
All right, so David picking up that bombos. And Pink Kitty Rose now going to check the front of Skull Woods, which is interesting considering they already have the Titan's Mitts. But I mean, there's two items in here, and we're still looking for, you know, boots, bow. There's Pink Kitty Rose is still looking for Ice Rod, but that will change soon.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, when you get to a point later in the race, and right now, Pink Kitty Rose, having found those Titan's Mitts, despite having double dip Swamp, may still end up feeling pretty contentious in this race. You know, just knowing that it was a pedestal seed. But at that point, though, you definitely don't want to make the simple mistake of just skipping one spot thinking, hey, it's going to cost me an extra 15 seconds. If it's going to cost you 15 minutes, you know, ends up not being worth it. So a little bit of caution, you know, displayed by checking everything in Skullwoods, but I can't fault her for it. Well, that does place So Hey It's David in Swamp Palace. We know that there's not a whole lot of big value here in Swamp Palace. Besides that, of course, required pendant. And speaking of which, for how long Pink Kitty Rose will have the Titan's Mitts over everybody else in the restream here, I never really would have considered how big of an advantage that would have been. Just maybe 20 minutes ago, we weren't anticipating this.
All right, so the ice rod acquired by Pink Kitty Rose. Oh, hey, it's David. Will now be clearing out swamp. We'll see if we skip left side or not.
Yeah, it's extra punishing because we're going to find that big key in the back half. So trying to make the decision of how you're going to route it, whether you're going to abandon the dungeon. I would think most people would probably dive back in if they're worried about missing something, but it's one really important scenario where you just got to make sure you don't miss your item count, because if you're tracking it based on a tracker, you can absolutely mess that up. Ooh, Ismati Games, just barely an hour into the seed, gonna be the last one on our screen to find out about this pedestal. What a lousy place or time in the race to find out about that. So on the bright side, good to not skip Moldorm.
Yep. So we've got ourselves a Spike Cave check for Superintendent Taylor. Just a bottle. Certainly not something you would say no to, but not what you're looking for.
Yeah, and depending on your relative skill with the game, sometimes, you might even feel comfortable foregoing them entirely, but, sick kids, unfortunately, an item location that you can't forego completely. But a lot of people who run, say, NMG, pretty used to not having them at all. So having 2 or 3 or 4 sometimes irrelevant. Dr. Bobtastic, a question in chat asking about how likely this scenario is. I mean, aren't pedestal seeds like, what, 5%?
Yeah, so the pedestal, the likelihood of a pedestal seed is roughly 0.5%, last I checked.
1/200th.
No, I'm making that up. 5% is closer to correct. My factors of stuff are off. I don't know what I'm doing.
I'm not a mathematician myself, so I mean, no criticism for me.
But then the probability of both Aga and pedestal being required is around 1/10 of that.
Well, folks, if you were gambling, deciding, on a flip of a coin whether or not you're going to watch a stream today, I believe you won, regardless of whether you anticipated this result or not. You tuned into a very interesting race. And, how suiting is it that for a cash tournament like this, that we would have some wackiness going on in the logic? I'm only excited to see what we're going to find out in version 30 when that eventually drops, because I'm seeing so many crazy things in just these last couple of weeks from version 29 logic. And a part of me wonders where at this point those boots are going to be. We know it's not going to be desert because we've already cleared that out. Palace of Darkness, I believe we've pretty much cleared out. Well, we haven't checked Helmasaur.
Yeah. Nobody's done Helmasaur. It's a little difficult to get there at the moment, but still got to get that bow.
Alright, so I can foresee the scenario. Bow on Trinex, which leads to Helmasaur, which has the boots, which leads to Lammolis, which, well, we wouldn't need any other.
It has the 7th crystal. That's the important part.
I can just foresee the tragedy unfolding. And of course, none of us have talked about Ice Palace. That is, it's there. There's access to it as soon as you have those Titans bits like Pink Kitty Rose does.
Oh yeah, Ice Palace for days.
Now, I gotta ask, knowing that it's blocked by that and Misery Mire, and Ice Palace, of course, having more items than, say, Misery Mire, if you were thinking, hey, I want to dive in on this pedestal requirement, which of those two would you choose first?
Well, all things being equal, I will usually go into Mire before Ice, if I have the chance.
Yeah, because you can definitely have a more straightforward routing in there.
Especially if I can clear it. You know, if I have the Cane of Samaria. Mainly the thing with Mire is it's likely going to take you as long in go mode as it does otherwise.
Right, so it's kind of a time-neutral decision. Well, quite the stagger between the swagger of these ducks. Pink Kitty Rose, I believe, second to activate Flute, unless I missed Asmati Games do it.
Well, all of the other runners have the flute. I don't know if they've done it. I don't know if they've all activated it, but...
Yeah, they had to have. They were just outside in Thieves Town. That would be silly not to.
Yeah, so there... In these four-person races, there's not going to be any Swag Duck Anthem, because that's going to take away from the action.
Yeah, not only that, but I mean, you know, this isn't the Olympics. We can't have 4 national anthems going, you know, at different times. That would be a little disorienting. However, this is, of course, an international tournament, as all of these randomizer tournaments have been. So, always nice to see the representation around the world. And of course, one thing, if you are tuning into Speed Gaming or if you just recently started following the channel, we also have multilingual or broadcasts as well in German, French, and Spanish. If you have any interest in, you know, speaking those languages, you know, for an audience, get a hold of us in the Speed Gaming Discord. We're always looking for more.
Superintendent Taylor with the excellent double fire rod spin strat there, and you know, getting a 1 cycle on Argus with the Tempered Sword. Pink Kitty Rose will now pick up the Cane of Samaria, and that will put Pink Kitty Rose in the item lead here.
Yeah, so cane, both rods. I mean, Turtle Rock's also a thing, and it's a long climb up there, but, you know, Titan's Mit's locking it.
Yeah, to be honest, I feel like Dark Death Mountain is probably the play, if nothing else, because not only do you have Turtle Rock available, but you've also got Super Bunny Cave, Hookshot Cave, all this ridiculousness.
So we have a possibility of that Bowsmith. I love that because then you can make the Aerosmith joke. But, I mean, we're definitely going to check it since Pink Kitty Rose is over here. This is, again, another one of those things that we need those Titan's Mitts for. I feel like everything that's Titan's Mitts feels appealing. And for the reasons you mentioned, Dark Death Mountain seems like it makes sense. We're going to find a bottle of Red Goo, though. Well, we're going to see simultaneous pedestals as well. Superintendent Taylor picking up those Titans mitts, and oh hey, it's David, only a screen behind in that regard.
All right, so Superintendent Taylor looks like they're going to... Oh, they're going to turn in the green pendant.
Another thing that you would probably not expect a lot of your opponents to do, given the knowledge that we have, so could very easily be the important item location. Something I would not have remembered to do. Unfortunately, very laggy section of Hyrule here. We have all these red guards since we've destroyed Aghanim.
Yeah, that's why it took me about 20 seconds to figure out what he was doing. Just a big 20, though.
Look, the Super Nintendo can't handle the Superintendent Taylor lag here.
And we see the play up to Death Mountain, which I expected. Now, oh hey, it's David has headed over to Mire now.
Definitely going to take advantage of that portal to check the item on the ledge as well, not having had any reason to route that direction earlier. And taking advantage of the portal also to check Desert. We know already, though, that this is boots locked, so a moot point, but information nonetheless. Well, that was purple chest. I didn't catch that, though. I'm sure you probably would have said something to do with something big, though. Also, I gotta point it out, I believe that's a new sprite on Pink Kitty Rose's screen. Is that Madeline from Celeste?
No, I think it's the Inkling sprite.
Oh, okay.
It's just the blue male version of the Inkling sprite.
I was gonna say the resemblance is uncanny. That being said, though, if you have any skill with making sprites out there, folks, you can always contribute as well. We like to see more fun things to play as. I'm a personal fan of Luigi, but mileage varies for everybody. Well, Turtle Rock, we have the portal, and both Super Nintendo and Pink Kitty Rose going to activate it. And I think, like you were mentioning before, the sensible play is to check the rest of this mountain. We do, after all, have this hookshot.
All right. So yeah, the entrance to Turtle Rock being open. Plenty of items in there. Some people might go directly inside, but they're going to be disappointed because the bow is in Super Bunny Cave.
Oh, wow.
Like I said, Pink Kitty Rose is going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a play that you can make. And here's the thing, though, is, maybe it doesn't end up being a big deal. You check it right after.
Right. I mean, unless the boots
bow.
are here in Hookshot Cave, it's not going to be a real disappointment. Never mind.
Oh, no.
Is that Go mode for Super Nintendo?
In the words of a famous announcer from the F-Zero franchise, you got boots power.
Yeah, I think that's Go mode for Super Nintendo.
Well, it's a little later than I would have expected at the outset of this match, but given that it's a pedestal Aghanim seed, that's not that unimpressive either, but we still have so many dungeons to go.
Yeah, the only thing that these runners might want that's left are the silver arrows, and that's not required. Bow and Boots. Bow was in the Super Bunny Cave. Boots were in Hookshot Cave. And so the fact that Super Nintendo went to check that before heading into Turtle Rock is paying off dividends.
Yeah, so one nice saving grace or saving throw for the rest of these racers is that, it's not unlikely that they'll all make their way up to the same spots up there. It does stink, though, that you might miss out on a lot of the time save from Boots. But eventually, nobody's going to miss that from, simply just not doing some random obscure check. So there's still a pretty decent chance with all these dungeons left that there will be, chances to change the lead or, someone to pull out in front. But things definitely looking in favor of Super Nintendo today.
No, the boots are necessary for Desert Palace today, which is why the boots made Go mode happen. Looks like we do have a vanilla big key, so there's no real advantage to be had from being in Go mode in Desert or in Turtle Rock, other than you may not have to check as much of Laser Bridge.
Yeah, and I guess the decision...
And of course that you have the boots.
Right. And, every dungeon you get different mileage out of it. There's a lot of places where you're changing directions in Turtle Rock, but you wouldn't even notice it really just kind of watching two different people go through the dungeon unless they're side by side as we see them now. But there are a lot of places where just small dashes are pretty big time saves cumulatively. Words are hard. Well, so Mimic Cave is something that Super Nintendo might skip.
Yeah, I imagine it will be skipped. That being said, if it's like silver arrows, that could be a huge deal.
I was just bracing for you to curse that one.
Nope. 50 rupees. Though I will be fair, it kind of messed with me a little bit because it was roughly the shape of the silver arrows.
Yeah, there was some kind of symbols like the 50 from 50 could have looked like letters at a first glance. We're always on the edge of our seat for some of these, potentially game-changing items, and it's oftentimes, the things that you don't expect to be as important, say like silvers or a sword upgrade, compared to progression. Things that can give people that edge that they need to finish up the end section of the game, which is purely execution, ahead of an opponent who, may be potentially skipping some of those things. So that's something we'll be keeping an eye out for, is whether or not these runners will choose to do any extra item locations than they have to. Hoping for such an edge. I gotta think in this scenario, everybody in the race realizes, this is an execution race once you get those Titansmiths and, you check Death Mountain.
So Super Nintailor and Pink Kitty Rose both now inside the Turtle Rock Dark Room. And Pink Kitty Rose will be the first to reach Laser Bridge. However, Super Nintailor doesn't have the checks outside that they need to do. A mushroom on the Laser Bridge. 10 arrows. There's the small key. So if Nintailor wants to, he can stop at that third chest. He's just going to miss out on 10 more arrows.
And you said it and it happened, and then we start to get to see some of the side-by-side differences between boots and not boots, as they are pretty much synced up. Meanwhile, we got D-boost strats from Oh Hey It's David, also known as WQ strats. And that is a zero-cycle Vitreous. Excellently done.
Nice. Without, bow and silver arrows, that is a very impressive feat.
Well, we'll see if Trinex goes as well for both Super Nintailor and Pink Kitty Rose. Backdoor strats for Super Nintailor, front door for Pink Kitty Rose. Looks like Super Nintailor might be able to pull off the minimal cycle here. The one cycle. Yeah, yep. Nicely done.
Yeah, it turns out the zero cycle is only possible if you have the gold sword. And it's pretty tight at that.
Well, PKR's got to be careful here. 3.5 hearts. It's pretty easy to accidentally take an extra hug here and, spend a lot of time walking back.
Yeah, I believe with Blue Mail, you're still good to take one hit. I think it's 3 hearts. All right, so with that, Super Nintailor is in official go mode, meaning he's going to go ahead and clear out as many dungeons as quickly as possible. Of course, Pink Kitty Rose will be picking up that go mode shortly, so it's going to be a close race. A little execution either way could cause a change in the lead. Looks like we're going to get the Eastern and Pod finishes out of the way. Both of those dungeons have been mostly cleared out, to the best of my knowledge. Therefore, he will not have to spend too much time in here.
Yeah, those will be fast dives to finish them up. We'll also have Desert Palace, a very quick finish, as we've already done almost everything in there and have access to Boots and Mirror. Ice Palace's go mode and Misery Mire could potentially be extremely quick, so despite the trackers that you see right now, this could actually be wrapping up in a relatively short order. If you were expecting an hour, it might not be that long. Looks like Super Nintailor, though, going to take the bow side of the dungeon, remembering the dungeon's contents from earlier, which I think is pretty impressive. That's hard to keep track of.
Yeah, there's a reason I don't do tracking. So yeah, the official rules for these tournaments, you can read more on the website listed there. But the way it works out is if you are... You have to do exactly 4 of these qualifier matches, and your score is given by, how many people you beat, divided by the total number of people in the race, not including yourself. And that will give you, you add that up over the 4 races, and that will give you your score. The top 8 of those scores are seeded into the brackets.
Yeah, so this will be an evolving qualifier as we get through the remainder of it. We've only had, I believe it's 3 races so far total.
Yeah, I believe this will be the 4th.
Yeah, so this is the earliest that someone could finish up their qualifiers. I don't think anybody has done all 4 races. I might be wrong about that. But, doing them early, potentially advantageous when less people are racing them. I have to think a lot of people are going to cram in the last 4. But I don't mean to direct you to try to do your race a certain way. There's 24 of them total, so that we have the most opportunity for everybody to get 4 in.
I don't believe there is a minimum for the qualifier races, but there might be. I don't know for sure. So one of the upsides with a smaller qualifier race like this one is it's a little easier to win because you have fewer people to beat. The downside, of course, being if you get less than first place, you will get fewer points.
And of course, you don't have access to knowing how many people are in your race or who's in your race, unless you're pretty much just looking at the IRC channel from the race room itself the day of. So being that you have to sign up in advance for it, you can't really game it, very easily unless you're just kind of going off people's general schedules. So strategy around that's kind of limited. It's really all about just being the best Link to the Past randomizer racer, which I think is exciting.
Yeah, I think your best strategy for this tournament is get good.
Does that make this tournament the Dark Souls of a Link to the Past randomizer tournament?
Oh my god.
Praise the run.
Oh boy. Anyway, so Pink Kitty Rose is now headed for through Misery Mire. Super and Taylor going to finish off Eastern. So once again, both runners, doing their go mode. And we'll see who reaches that Ganon's Tower entrance first.
It's kind of interesting to see so few boots in the race on the restream this late into the race. It's kind of funny to see all these runners doing these completions, really quickly, but just no boots. It does interfere with a couple fun speed techs, namely like item dashing and, for example, the spooky tech that you can see in Misery Mire. We're not going to see that today because of the configuration of this seed. But we will get to see a bomb jump here from Oh Hey It's David, the first one into Ice Palace. This is a very important bomb jump if you haven't watched much Randomizer. And of course, in the vanilla game, using this, you can skip pretty much the vast majority of the dungeon, well over half of it. And if you're trying to route, it also gives you some convenient options as well if you're trying to check more locations. So one of the more interesting dungeons. You definitely want to go mode it, though.
So speaking of spooky glitch, I'm pretty sure we just saw it from Pink Kitty Rose.
Oh, did we do the Samaria setup?
I believe so.
Yeah, so what it's all about is messing with the stored value for a certain sprite. And you can trick the game into thinking that the fire rod splash damage is supposed to appear somewhere where it's not. And we can shoot a switch through a wall because of it. So we got to see that from Pink Kitty Rose. We threw a Samaria block into a hole to mess with that value.
All right, Superintendent Taylor doing the Eastern Palace boss, getting a little bit trolled by the quick kill setup, attempting to pull it off in one go. Unfortunately, not going to work out today, but that will deal with the Armos Knights and Pink Kitty Rose dealing with the Vitreous at the same time.
I'm a little bit amazed at how quickly we are clearing off these dungeons on these trackers. Like we mentioned before, this has become quite the execution race going forward, and Superintendent Taylor has another combo dungeon with Desert Palace and Misery Mire available. Looks like Ice Palace is going to be his last dungeon, whereas for several other runners, I think it's going to be a different story.
Yep. So Superintendent Taylor, we see, I believe he actually set up Spooky Glitch right there as he picked up the rock as the bird was going away.
That looks to be the case, and if you know that you are going to try to do that, speed text say if you're moding this dungeon. The key thing is that you can't use a certain position the sprite is. So there's like 9 or 10 different slots, and you want to trick the game into storing that value on a slot you're not going to use in the dungeon. So whether or not you dash or do item dashes becomes relevant. The important thing is if you do the dungeon normally, you shouldn't have any problems if you pick up the rock and use the bird to set that altitude value. There's not a whole lot more behind it. There's a million different setups, but if you do it optimally, you can save up to about 10 to 12 seconds. And Superintendent Taylor appears to be trying to take advantage of that today.
Yeah, and the only other thing is make sure to not use any other Samaria blocks except the one you have to, and make sure to dash before you do that.
Yeah, and there are, of course, different setups, too, so I mean, different implications depending on which slot you're using. And there's a bunch of information from the SRL Discord for A Link to the Past that you can kind of dive a little bit further into how that all works. But for functional purposes, the game's weird, does some interesting stuff. You can save some time in the basement. So something we're seeing from Oh Hey It's David, way more completion in Ice Palace than we're going to see from people who do this dungeon later in the race. You know, could easily go right to Cold Stare, but Oh Hey It's David doesn't know that, you know, the progression's found elsewhere.
Yeah, a lot of runners will try to get the, the Turtle Rock play as the last possible play, especially given the fact that they've had to go up Death Mountain so many times, but it's just not possible today.
And it's a very difficult urge to resist.
Now, Pink Kitty Rose is going to go to Ice Palace next. Looks like the Pod Eastern combo will be her final dungeons.
You know, I'm seeing some discussion in chat about where the silvers were. We have not been to the Pyramid Ferry. That is still on the table. I'm not a fan of those extravagant ice cream flavors. I really prefer vanilla.
Oh, okay. That being said, I don't think we're actually going to find too much in the department of silver arrows today.
Yeah, we could happen across them in Gan's Tower, but that's probably our best chance to... Oh, wait. Oh, hey, it's David does have them. So, yeah, those are in Ice Palace.
Oh, hey.
Oh, I see what I accidentally did there.
I see what I didn't do that on purpose either.
David pulling one over on both of us today. Also getting those silvers. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough to surmount the progression disadvantage of not having that bow and boots, but certainly winning over our hearts with the inadvertent jokes that we're making here.
Yep. I mean, silver arrows are, a significant time save in the Ganon fight. They're not, it's about, I'd say, 45 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. And saying 45 seconds is comparing against the optimal tempered spin strats, which is 3 per phase, and that's not exactly easy to pull off, even if you're good at the game, say in NFG. Well, we do have another Trinex fight for Asmani Games coming up here. I believe we'll be finding that bow pretty soon. And then, of course, Superintendent Taylor coming up on his opportunity to do some spooky things in the basement.
So we note that Pink Kitty Rose is, in fact, going directly to Cold Stare, not passing gold, not collecting silver arrows.
Yo, I gotta point it out. I'm seeing some amazing spookiness in this basement. Superman Taylor wins the award for pulling off glitches 3 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully this cold stare that you're talking about will be as good as the try next to that we saw from Asmati. Not a perfect finish to the fight, but certainly serviceable. And Pink Kitty Rose taking advantage of that fire rod to wrap this one up, only letting it get away for just a moment. Unfortunately for Superman Taylor, gonna lose pretty much all the time we saved from Spooky Tech on a failed 0 cycle attempt. Nevertheless, to emerge with a hard and a half is a whole lot better than the 0, so we'll get that crystal and make our way on to Desert, I presume, since that is pretty much where he's at right now.
Yep, very true. And there's Sinek with the resub here. Thank you there very much for that.
Now that's some dedication.
So Pink Kitty Rose gonna make their way over to Pod and Eastern, while Superman Taylor just needs to finish off Desert, and then they can go mode Ice.
Yeah, I suppose the person who suffered most from Ice today definitely going to be, oh, hey, it's David. And that's probably something that we may end up hearing if we get a chance to speak with David after the race. Because, I mean, that's definitely something that separates him from decisions being made from the other runners. It's interesting how, you know, whether or not you would weight the decision to go up the Death Mountain at a certain time, or how many trips up Death Mountain you could stomach as a runner, potentially being a factor in whether or not you end up winning this race, just that simple tendency alone. Well, we're seeing the Bowlock side of Pink Kitty Rose of Palace of Darkness being completed, which is a quick jaunt over to Helmasaur King. We also have Asmati Games in Palace of Darkness as well.
Yeah, Pink Kitty Rose has to come over here because they use the key on the door for the hammer jump, and there is a key over here.
And isn't it just nice that we got these hammer pegs right here?
Yeah, it's very nice when you have the hammer. When you don't, you're like, I have to die now, don't I?
And no, we're not kidding. That's an actual death warp strategy. Sometimes you really do just have to die. I like the gumption of using that hammer dash, though. Knocking down those skull pots. We don't have time to lift things. We already spent enough time trying to get the one lift upgrade. Pretty nice to have the boots for that section, but not required, just, you know, swag.
Mm-hmm. All right, Pink Kitty Rose activating the statue to go downstairs. Superman Taylor, of course, finishing off Desert Palace. That leaves Ice Palace as a go mode dungeon for Superman Taylor.
And it's a quick one. That's a super fast go mode, particularly at his level with Butter Sword, which is an overwhelmingly strong weapon for this dungeon.
Yeah, Butter Sword makes it where even the scrubbiest scrub can make quick work of Cold Stare.
I can relate to that.
I know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, what?
Well, it'll still be very fast, regardless of whether we have that gold sword or even the bombos or half magic. There's so many different ways that we can take advantage of our equipment to make this a faster dungeon. Superman Taylor, though, will be heading up to Ganon's Tower immediately following. So in a short little bit, we'll probably get that whole thing started that we like to do here at Speed Gaming. In the meantime, enjoy the ridiculousness of how fast we get through this dungeon. And Helmasaur King's being a jerk to PKR right now.
Yeah, but he goes down in pretty short order.
Here's hoping Asmati Games has a better fare here. Also, if I saw that right, I think Oh Hey It's David had the worst possible luck with Pokies in Turtle Rock, having that Pokey go all the way back to the entrance he just showed up from, just to get that key for that door. That's rough luck.
Yeah, I think we saw something similar from Superman Taylor earlier.
Pokies, if you didn't know, have, I think, about 16 different RNG combinations that you can get, or at least in the room with 2 there are. So maybe it's 8 per, based on cardinal directions, but they're never fun. Very rarely do you get something you want out of them.
They also are, they hold the distinction of, along with Ganon and Vitreous's main eyeball, being the only enemies in the game that take more than 1 silver arrow to kill.
You know, I didn't realize that. Pokies can survive more than 1 arrow? Or
Yep.
they can survive an arrow?
They sure can.
I've been saying that wrong for a long time. Yeah, Vitreous, Ganon, and Pokies. So today I learned. That's something about this game. No matter how good you think you are at the game or how much you know or think you know, there's always something more to learn about A Link to the Past. And despite having spoken quite a lot about it this year...
Oh, hey, it's David. Did you see what he just did?
No, I didn't catch that. I was too busy.
He just hovered that gap for no reason.
Because of reasons, I think, is what we meant to say. Well, that's awesome. We haven't seen a hover yet in this race. If you've never seen hovering before, if you're not sure what even hovering is, the game only checks to see if Link is standing on solid ground over a certain number of frames in intervals. So if you can, with the right rhythm and timing, tap the dash button, you can actually trick the game into thinking you're just walking on what is basically an empty pit.
Yeah, so the idea is, after releasing the dash, you have 1 frame to move before you have to push the dash button again. You can hold the dash button for up to 30 frames, so that's like half a second. But you can only release for 1, so that's the real trick.
If you thought Mario Party for Nintendo 64 was bad on your hands...
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about.
So, rip all of our palms from our younger years. At least on the bright side, you get a very tactile button and a Super Nintendo controller. So there's that going for us, with decent actuation. Not quite a keyboard, but you know. Actually, hovering is a very difficult thing to do.
All right, so our runners will now be heading, or Super Nintendo is heading to Ganon's Tower, and Pink Kitty Rose is just behind. So, as expected, both runners going to be reaching there at a very similar time. We will see what the Ganon's Tower routing does to both of our runners here.
Well, since Chad does bring up a good point, is we don't know if anybody else in the race has been to, say, GT or something like that, so we won't have that whole guessing game going. But if you want to, you know, throw in your guesses in there based on obviously Super Nintendo being the first one there in our screen, go ahead. You know, always interesting to see what the number of the day will be. Do you have a particular guess? Oh, I know what it is, Dr. Bobtastic.
You know what my chess is going to be. You know that.
All right, this is going to be united commentary regarding where we think that big key is at. So if we were to go right-left because of a first 2 item check, I think that would be 14, but it remains to be seen where he actually ends up going.
I mean, that's where it was last night. Bob's chest in the race I did last night. And Super Nintendo is going to go for the right side check. Now, Pink Kitty Rose, we will likely see her actually go left first. She tends to do that. And then go back to the right. Oh, never mind.
Well, in hindsight, it's hard to imagine how close this got. I mean, both of them in Ganon's Tower. We have a divergence here. Pink Kitty Rose going left, whereas Super Nintendo has so far gone full right. And, oh, there it is!
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, on the first one to get there, on that side, you know, we do save Bob, so, I mean, it's not that bad of news. But it's bad news for Pink Kitty Rose. It'll be a while before we get over there.
So some of you may be wondering, why did Super Nintendo open up the remainder of those chests? And the answer is because there could have been a small key in one of them.
Yeah, we definitely need at least one climbing the tower, and it's a gamble on whether or not you think you're going to get the other one that you're going to need. So, and it's possible to actually get locked by key logic up there. So you always got to go up the tower with at least one. Two is nice.
And let's be fair, with the strats I use, I would be going the same way as Pink Kitty Rose, so I'd be completely out of luck this run.
I can and will agree with you on that one. Kind of an old strategy to go right-left at this point, but we see so much divergence in, Ganon's Tower between runners these days that I don't think there's really much that can be said to be the standard anymore at this point. Well, Super Nintendo is going to be the first one through my favorite room in the entire game, and I've renamed this recently through the advice of a friend of mine. It's Cannonball GT.
Oh, okay. Can we just pretend that doesn't exist and instead call it Cannonball Super?
I mean, I like it, but I mean, we're in GT.
You're right.
And I was thinking about it, like maybe the Cannonball room in like Desert Palace is Cannonball Z, or well, what would Super be? We have the room in Eastern Palace?
Possibly.
Nevertheless, though, we do have a gauntlet ahead of us, a considerable number of execution-heavy rooms, with some interspersed with some boss refights. We skip Ice Armos in this run. We won't have to fight Ice Armos unless one of our runners unfortunately makes that decision. But Lamolus 2 refight, we'll have Moldorm refight, and of course Aghanim, which will actually be a refight in this race, which is pretty interesting. Generally, we completely forego it altogether, but our favorite friend, Bob, making his appearance in Pink Kitty Rose's screen. Shoutouts to PKR for not killing our friend.
Yeah. I mean, let's be fair, even I will occasionally powder Bob. But that's okay, he shows up on the other side of the room.
Yeah, I mean, just being a team player. Teleporting when we need the health. Very nice Ice Armos kill for Pink Kitty Rose. One thing that I would be so hyped to see in this tournament, and I'm sure there's an MG out there, runner out there who's crazy enough to do it, Yuzahara Ice Arrows. That would be nuts. There's a very awesome sliding strat that you can do. I don't have a link to the clip anywhere, but if you take a look for it on like YouTube or something, I'm sure there's someone's got video evidence of it. It's the most ridiculous looking Armos strategy you've ever seen.
All right. I'll have to look it up.
But so here's an opportunity to pick up a key that we were talking about earlier. Super Nintendo does check that chest, maybe hoping to find those silvers since it is a pretty quick thing to do. Not bothering at the other side though, so only willing to spend so many seconds.
Yeah, and luckily enough, gets a piece of heart there, which actually is the 4th, so gets a free health refill there.
Very convenient. If you're a Rocket League player, you'd say calculated.
And Super Nintendo takes down Trolldorm 2, going for the hook shot across. And just a burrito in the final chest as we make our way toward Geometry Wizard, aka Aghanim 2.
Yep, much like the first fight, we're going to play some good old-fashioned Zelda volleyball. This time around, there's 2 after images, and those will always have reflective shots. The primary one, still that 50-50 chance. And of course, RNG is set for all of our runners. Looks like a triple, though.
Oh, gets bodied by that blue ball, but manages to get one more shot in. Oh, looks like the first one only counted as 2.
Yeah, if those shots hit at the same frame or within a certain window, they don't count as individual shots. They'll overlap, so sometimes you get a shot eaten by that.
All right, so Super Nintendo heading in to finish off this seed against Ganon in the Pyramid. We've already fought every other boss in this seed, except Ice Armos, in his case.
Yeah, if you wanted to see the entire game, today was your day. And considering how much gets done and the order in which we do it, it still blows my mind every time I see a race finish this quick for how much completion it is. Keep in mind, like, a good NMG run is like an hour and a half, and there's no randomness to that besides the enemies. Well, with Gold Sword, this is pretty trivial, though. Just 6 slashes will do the job here for each of these first 2 cycles. Phase 3, of course, 1 slash per warp cycle for each of the sides of the floor. And then we don't have ice, or we don't have the silver arrows. And without those, it's going to be sword spins.
Yep, you're going to want to hit that torch glitch. It just makes it easier to get the sword spins in. But it's not a strictly necessary thing.
Yeah, the biggest advantage is that you can get an extra sword spin attack per cycle, being that the fire rod gives you range and allows you to be closer to Ganon when you hit that torch.
Now, one thing about Pink Kitty Rose is I've noticed when she fights Silverless Ganon, she likes to try to do it with slashes.
Which is the boldest and most absurd thing that anybody should ever do. There is a very small window. I believe it's 2 frames, could be a little more than that. Where you can do a slash instead of a sword spin. We choose sword spins because the active hitbox is available to us for far longer than the slash, but slashes are still possible. Usually you'll just blue the Ganon, though, turning him into a blue phase where you can't actually hurt him unless you have arrows. The 12 sword spins should do it. Super Taylor here has finished up the big old pig himself. As soon as he crosses over that threshold, we'll have his official SRL time here from the IRC server.
There we are. The official time for Super Taylor is a 1 hour, 46 minutes, and 40 seconds. So that's a first place finish for Super Taylor. We will see if we can get Super Taylor to join us.
And yes, to confirm in chat, Super Taylor is our first place winner here in the race so far. We'll have more times as they come in from the actual race feed, and we see them happen on our screen, of course.
And we are now joined by the winner of today's race, Super Taylor. Congratulations.
Thank you. Oh, man. I was shaking up the whole tower. I kept on looking at IRC, and it's like, is PKR done yet?
Yeah, well, you guys both entered the tower roughly 10, 20 seconds apart, but your key route choice was better.
Yeah, because of the delay, I had time to watch a bit of the ending, so I kind of saw the routing difference. I mean, it was nice on my part that happened. Unfortunate for her.
Yeah, strangely enough, I remember Pink Kitty Rose usually takes a different route, which would have suited her better this time. Mm-hmm. But you pulled it out.
I don't know. I wonder if something happened in the run that affected how she wanted to route it, or maybe because there's so much on the line with like placements, she's trying to do something like more meta and hoping that her execution can carry her instead of like random routing.
So the main difference between here, number one, Pink Kitty Rose dipped Swamp Palace early without the hook shot, so that didn't help.
I considered that. I'm glad I didn't, obviously.
And two, Pink Kitty Rose went into Turtle Rock before checking Super Bunny and Hookshot Cave.
Yeah, it's not a bad play, because, I mean, like, there's not a huge difference between Go Mode Turtle Rock and full clear. Like, I basically full cleared Turtle Rock. I got to skip
the very last chest on Laser Bridge.
Last chest and Mimic Cave, so it's actually not that bad of a play. But I kind of like checking the other locations first.
Well, one thing that we saw that was vastly different between the way you routed and how others routed, at least on the restream side, was that you decided to go to Aghanim relatively early compared to your opponents. I was gonna ask you, what informed that choice? You seem to have other locations you could have checked, like Eastern Palace or, Sahasrahla. You seem pretty committed to that decision.
Yeah, well, my thinking was, like, there wasn't a whole lot open except for Sahasrahla and Eastern Palace, so my whole thinking was if I could unlock, Aghanim now, Dark World, I have the mirror, so I can go straight there, and I can mirror, and I can combo Eastern Palace and Pod together, and Sahasrahla. I could do it all in one sweep, and it kind of looked like a Aga Seed anyway. Just because I still had no hammer, no gloves, it gave me a Master Sword, gave me a lantern. I had a strong feeling it was an Aga Seed, and I liked the play of trying to combine both Eastern places together.
Yeah, on that subject, I believe you comboed twice with Mire and Desert and Eastern and Pod, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I double dipped Desert, but yeah, I comboed them for the go mode.
Yeah, that was really nice to see, because you were one of the first people that we saw to go mode, and that was well over an hour in. So that's kind of crazy to see how many crystals you still had left to go. Also of note, we have Pink Kitty Rose crossing the Triforce room. We'll be finishing here with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 50 minutes, and 38 seconds. GG.
That is a second place finish, of course, and we also have a third place finish for Dracaris, coming in at a 1 hour, 50 minutes, and 53 seconds.
Wow, 15 seconds snipe.
That's gotta feel bad for Dracaris.
Well, that's almost enough to qualify as a fanfare snipe, right?
Yeah. Pretty dang close.
And it does look like PKR has joined us in the chat. So let's do that. And we are now joined by the second place finisher in this race. Pink Kitty Rose, how you doing?
Oh! Just off. And I mean, what more said to say than that? It was an Aga Pedsi that there was like 40 minutes of really, really bad decisions.
I actually didn't even think about that until just now. It was both Aga and Ped. That's actually kind of awesome.
Yeah, that never happened.
So bad. So bad. I'm happy I checked Ped when I did, because it at least made up a lot of time for really, really bad choice. Why did I not go to Area?
Oh, man, I skipped. Go ahead, sir.
It's like I swam right by. It's like, oh, there's nothing in Zora Area. There was something in Zora Area, and it would have changed everything.
There was something in what?
Zora Area.
Zora Area, right.
Yeah, the Waterfall Fairy glove would have kept me out of swamp, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. I was like, it was not an objectively awful play to go into swamp there, but it certainly didn't pay off.
Nope. And then it's like, I thought I was all clever doing the ped check and finding out his mitts and putting off Village of Outcasts until I got them, but then the flute was in Thieves Town, so it ended up wasting more time anyways. And then Smith Loop was empty, so it wasted even more time. It's like, and then it was the worst possible GT routing for me. So I was like, see, can you punch me anymore? I think I've had my fill.
Yeah. What happened to your standard routing? I thought you usually went like left first and then checked the right two.
Well, I was feeling like I didn't really have room to mess around, so I just did more normal routing at that point because I already felt super behind from just really, 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 really bad results on all my choices. And oh look, the last choice was also a bad result. My goodness. Oh, sometimes the seed just keeps kicking you. But hey, my curse of second place in like all these archer races I joined lives on. That's like 4 in a row now.
Well, there's worse places to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the first time I went to the Dark World or Cacria Portal, Lost Woods Portal, I thought about doing the ped check, and I was like, I'm just gonna leave it. Maybe I'll check it later if I get like Fire Rod, so I can be closer, so I can like clear Skull and then check it. And then when I checked it finally, I was like, oh no, I should have checked this earlier. And I was feeling a little bit nervous at that point because I had already dipped into Hera, saw the first item, and was like, no, I'm done. And I left.
Yeah,
and I saw the ped, and I was like, oh no. I realized that was a possibility though, but I also knew I still had a Spike Cave, so I was like, if that does come up, I can at least try to combo Hera and Spike Cave together to make it not so much of a waste anymore.
Speaking of our lovely pet seed, the fact that all 3 pendant dungeons were empty of any progress on top of that. The only purpose for going through any of them was to get the mitts unpegged. Not even one of them had an item of use. Not even one. Not even a sword.
Yeah.
Yep, and I don't know how many of you actually went to the basement of Hera, but that was garbage as well, so...
Nah, I made that skip.
Yeah. Sniping Drac with the dig game skip. Aw, yeah. I'm sorry, Drac.
Yeah, that was like a 30-something, almost a 30 dig, too.
I'm just like, I saw the Samaria, I'm just like, there's no more items in the sphere. The rest of them are behind the mitts. And I just walked past it, not a thought in the world. And thankfully it didn't bite me.
Yeah, it turned out to be a pretty wise choice. You know, another thing that we saw different early in the race, and, you know, Pink Kitty Rose, you actually did this completely different from the other racers in the restream, is you went right to Lake Hylia to check where that hammer was, or at least to check that location. And that ended up being, from what I could tell, very important information. Though Pedestal ended up being another can of worms in of itself. It was very interesting on our end, and you're going to want to rewatch this just to see how different the routing was. But those checks ended up being valuable.
I mean, I even said out loud, like the second I saw that hammer, it's like, well, this is an Agasine. Like, not even the slightest doubt. And then Kakariko, when I finally get there, has 2 swords and the pearl, and I'm just like, well, I'm going to Hyrule Castle.
Yep. So all the items that are traditionally your Dark World access items, hammer, gloves, those were all technically locked behind the flippers, which were locked behind Dark World access. So it's kind of hilarious that all 3 were in the logic lock behind the Dark World access. Usually 1 or 2 will become available, and you'll get that glimmer of hope that you don't have to go.
Can we talk about that Light World Sphere? Because I have never seen the start of the game be so empty before. It's like, here's a couple of swords, a lamp, a pearl, an ether, and a mirror. Go nuts. That's like 3 less items than usual. Like, that's the only reason why I even went into Eastern Palace, because I was in such disbelief that there could be nothing else in the start of the Light World. I'm just like, there's nothing. The most I've got from the rest of these checks has been an Ether Medallion. Even Hyrule Castle was empty.
All right, so our official run here, we've got Faceless Idiot came in 4th place with a 154.07, but Osmati Games, who was our 3rd feature runner, finishing in 5th place with a 1 hour 57 minutes and 14 seconds, and then Hemis85 finishing with 1 hour 57 minutes 15 seconds. I kid you not.
Yeah, that is what it shows in the IRC channel itself. That is as close as I've seen it.
I'm gonna duck out. I got lunch coming. There's some Monster Hunter to play. You guys have fun!
All right, congratulations once again.
And thanks for the great show.
See ya.
We will see if Osmati wants to join us. Yeah, there he is, right there in the chat room. Hello.
You're joined by Osmati. GG.
Hey guys, how's it going? That was a hell of a seed.
Yeah, those are some words you could use to describe. Absolutely.
I think it would be a little bit more literal, that the way you said it there. It was a literal hell of a seed.
Yeah, we went all the places.
So Asmati, you know, you have finished up 2 on this seed, and it was a challenging one to do so with. You know, with the, I believe it was 5th on IRC as we were looking at here. You know, how do you feel about your performance in this race? I mean, this is probably one of the worst ones to draw as far as logic goes.
I'm actually pretty happy with how that went. I mean, obviously the photo finish at the end was pretty neat, but I'm fairly new to Rando, so top 5 in a qualifier race is pretty good for me. I'm happy. And I had fun. Yeah,
we didn't see too many reactions out of the more trolly moments. You the decision to go check the pedestal, we saw that be a pretty big time difference between everybody as when they actually went there. But regarding that, I mean, it is good that you checked it as early as you did, because that could easily have not led you down the right path. There were a lot of dungeons people could have gone into. It seemed like everybody had pretty much finished up their overworld checks, and we didn't finish a lot of bosses before we found that out.
Yeah, I mean, I was tempted to just run to pedestal as soon as I got the book. And then when I got the fire rod, I was like, all right, I'm going right to Skull Woods, and it is pedestal time, because it's totally something. I assumed it was going to be boots, but gloves was also fine.
Oh, no. Hey, it's David taking a fall on Ganon.
Oh, no.
So I wanted to ask, well, since I have both of you still here, I'll start with Asmati Games. Is this your first qualifier race?
It's my first Finnish qualifier race. I actually jumped into the one on Sunday, but I had to leave in the middle. An emergency popped up. I was doing terrible that time anyway, so it wasn't such a big loss. So this is my second of the 4.
I don't think there was one on Sunday.
Or Monday, or
Okay, yeah.
Tuesday? Sometime earlier in the week.
There's always something playing on this channel, it seems like. So I also work nights myself, so it's pretty easy to confuse days on my end at least. But Superman Taylor, I think you already have done some qualifier races, is that right?
Sorry, so you're asking if I've already done qualifiers?
Yeah, I mean for this tournament, this isn't your first one for the tournament, right?
This is my second one.
All right. How'd you do in the first one?
First one I came 5th out of like 21 or something, 22. So not too bad.
Yeah, and of course this one, coming first is going to do you quite a bit of good no matter how many people were in the race.
Yeah, just an automatic score of 1. So let me see here. I know what my last one was. I want to figure out an average.
1, you can't beat 1.
It looks like you ought to be at about 91% or so.
Which is fantastic. Something else of note, since we are seeing our last runner finish up here. Oh, hey, it's David was the only one on our stream to actually get the silver arrows. Anybody care to hazard a guess as to where they were?
Silvers?
Ganon
will tell you where they are.
Ice Palace?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you forgot. I don't know.
Wasn't in that first chest, was it?
I don't think we actually noticed where it was.
To be honest, I actually didn't even notice the Ganon text. I never read that when I'm playing for some reason. I brush it off and I don't even realize the text is there. Just, I don't know, another enemy in the game or something. Get rid of the text.
Well,
I noticed someone in chat say it.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because you were, you did have a little bit of time between the delay and actually being in the interview.
Yeah.
With that, though, oh, hey, it's David. We'll finish up here with a official SRL time of 2 hours, 2 minutes and 19 seconds for a 7th place finish here.
Nice. Yeah, I just checked my average, so I'm at about 90%, 0.9.
Not bad.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I can do well in other races as well. I got 2 more to go.
Well, they won't all be ped seeds.
No.
Hopefully not.
I don't know. Maybe I need to hope they are.
Yeah, I mean, you did win this one, so.
Yeah.
I love pedestal seeds. It means that wacky things happen.
And it looks like we are now joined once again by, oh, hey, it's David. How you doing?
Hey, guys.
Yeah, that was certainly a seed, wasn't it?
What a hell of a seed.
I think you mean that literally. Is that correct?
Very much so.
It would appear to be unanimous.
That was crazy. I'm glad I checked PED as soon as possible.
Yep. So the main problem you had there was just that aversion to going back up Death Mountain for the umpteenth time.
Yeah. I was thinking to myself, all right, I gotta make a choice. It's either I go do Turtle Rock or I do Ice, and I chose to do Ice, and the right answer was actually Turtle Rock.
we did notice that that mini hover in front of the big chest of Turtle Rock. We appreciated it.
Yeah, I had to warm up for the Moldorm 2 hover.
Yeah, I mean, having not had the boots for so long in the race, I mean, for way too long in the race, we didn't really expect to see any hovers. Kind of caught us off guard with that one.
Yeah, what kind of jerk seed puts the boots in the hookshot cave where you can't hover to them?
Oh man, that was such a feels bad.
Well, at least we had the hookshot for it.
Yeah, that's true. That was also in Death Mountain too, wasn't it? I think.
Yep, hookshot was in Paradox Cave, and I think you were the first of our runners to actually find that.
That's true.
Honestly, I felt like I was a bit ahead when I found that, but then I think as I started doing other dungeons, I slowly started just feeling behind, especially when I did ice, because I didn't find anything other than, I guess, silvers, I think.
Yep, silver arrows were in there. Do you remember which chests they were in? Because we kind of missed it.
I think they were in the bottom, one of the bottom 2 chests where you have to pull the tongue. I think. One of those 2, I think.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Over by the Vanilla Big Key.
Yeah, Vanilla. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, so I mean, that was another really strange thing, is just like the order in which we saw everything. I mean, this is definitely worth a rewatch for you guys who were in the feature itself, because while it started off, pretty straightforward, we saw some symmetry between a couple runners. It really went off in wacky directions once it started kind of formulating in a few people's minds that Aghanim might be a part of this.
I honestly didn't want Aghanim to be required, but as soon as I got the items that I got, I was like, oh, this is definitely going to be an Aghanim seed. So I tried to go there as soon as possible.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that gloves were hidden behind fake flipper, I almost went to Aghanim right then, just because I knew it was going to be there.
I didn't even fake flipper. I was like, look, I beat Aghanim, and I was like, all right, I got the hammer. Now all I need is the gloves, and I found it. So luckily I went into the pod early. Yeah,
so both of our runners, the only one who fake flippered on stream was Osmati here.
It seemed like a good play at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you did find out about that hammer, and that was, critical information to have. Everybody kind of figured that at a different time. Pink Kitty Rose, the only one who did it immediately, with like Hylia checking the bombs being purchased there. But, eventually all of you ended up figuring that out at the same, progression of events, and you had the same requirements. So, it's not unusual to think that, but that's definitely a very weird item to find for that location.
I never really think that there's an item there, because usually I rarely ever have like a needed item on that island. But as soon as I saw a hammer there, I was like, oh no, this is going to be a really rough seed.
Well, a quick update on the remaining racers in this race. AK Drizty has just finished with an 8th place finish at a time of 2:05.18, and barely half a minute, or just under half a minute behind, was Fear Agent, finishing in 9th place with an official SRL time of 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 45 seconds.
That is true. I mean, there's only one other person remaining in the race. We could probably go ahead and say that time as well.
Fair enough. Our final finisher today will be Marty 7449, finishing in 10th place with a time of 2 hours, 11 minutes, and 43 seconds.
All right, so anything else you guys want to say about this seed before we wrap things up here today?
Pedestal forever.
Pedestal forever.
I haven't played Randomizer in a while, so coming back a bit rusty and coming back to a Ped Agaseed, fun times.
Yeah, that's a good way to bring you back into it, isn't it? It's like, welcome back, get wrecked. What?
For sure. Thanks guys for commentating.
Yeah, no problem.
It was a lot of fun to watch and cast over. And I think you're going to love the rewatch. It was a very interesting thing to see on our end, at least.
Okay, so I want to go ahead and thank all of our runners once again, Super Nintendo Taylor, Pink Kitty Rose, Asmati Games, and Oh Hey It's David for showing off their talents today on stream. I want to thank both of our trackers. We had Yoinker's wife and Danny running the show there. And of course, my co-commentator, Eudaimonistic. Thank you very much.
Hey, the feeling's mutual. Dr. Baptastic, you can always count on Bobtastic here, the doctor himself, on providing a wonderful commentary experience as both co-commentator and, of course, the knowledge and excitement from the viewer side. I've definitely seen a few myself. Just it's enjoyable to be on the other side of it sometimes. And then I'd like to echo the same sentiments. Big shout outs to Speed Gaming for putting on this tournament. It's a large endeavor, and volunteer stuff going on in the background is how this stuff's all possible. Big thanks to the administration for giving us an opportunity to showcase these runners. This is just 4 races out of 24, so there are plenty more of these qualifier races ahead. The next ones that we have here on the schedule, we have one tomorrow at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time, and then Saturday we'll have one at 2:15 and 9:15, and Sunday the same. So we have plenty more qualifier races ahead here in this tournament, and then of course our bracket shortly after in September.
And if you yourself want to get in on these races, remember to follow the link in the description in the chat from the summer command there, and you will find the link to the description of this tournament, also the Discord, which you'll need to be a part of, and then you can sign up for each of these races. You will need to sign up in advance. These aren't something you can just show up to and play.
That being said, though, you don't have to be a ridiculous amount of time in advance. We're not talking about a week or something. It's pretty reasonable within, I believe, is the day of or day before.
Yeah, you just have to do an hour before.
Yeah, so plenty of opportunity if you want to, try your hand in and maybe take a shot at that prize pool. Something very new to Link to the Past or Randomizer. Very excited to be a part of this. Something that we're all going to be, sitting at the edge of our seats for when it gets time to it. And best of luck to our runners here today that they have a shot at the large prize pool.
All right, so once again, thank you all for watching this race. We've got more action headed your way later. I believe the second match of the spring tournament finals between Andy and Christos Owen will be this afternoon, coming up pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. And make sure to follow all the Speed Gaming channels for all the rando action you can need. Once again, thank you to everyone involved, and I will just say that I have been Dr. Bobtastic.
And I've been Eudaimonistic. Barring any other further words, folks, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next mission.
See you later.